What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, starring Jack Nicholson, directed by Milos Forman. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. What can be said about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest that has not been said within the now 46 years of this movie's existence? To me, this movie deserves all the accolades it has garnered over the years. This movie is perfect. I love One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is an excellent movie. It's a perfect blend of drama and comedy, while at the same time, it's a story that you easily can invest yourself in, and it has performances that just suck you right into it. That just suck you right in. Jack Nicholson as Randall P. McMurphy. This was pretty much Jack Nicholson's real breakout role. This is what got him his first Oscar nomination as a leading actor. And when you watch this movie, Nicholson is fantastic in this film as Randall P. McMurphy. He has that patented manic Nicholson energy, and when he goes into this mental hospital, which is run pretty much by this authoritarian monstrous of a woman named Nurse Ratched, played beautifully by Louise Fletcher, he disrupts the routine that she has established with this ward. He disrupts the dictatorship in a way that Nurse Ratched has over these patients, where these patients are pretty much subservient in a way to Nurse Ratched. They're afraid for themselves. But then when McMurphy hits the scene, everything changes. They all start to gravitate to McMurphy because he's not afraid of Nurse Ratched. And you can see all this in Nicholson's performance, where just the little things that McMurphy does to get under Nurse Ratched's skin expertly, so good. And again, on the other side of the coin, you have Nurse Ratched played expertly by Louise Fletcher. Louise Fletcher gives Nurse Ratched this authoritarian, monstrous of a presence, yet she expertly gave her a very soft-spoken and elegant voice. Nurse Ratched, she never screams. She always has this polite demeanor in a way, but you can tell there's an authoritarian to that demeanor. And she's beautifully playing like this dictator almost of this ward. What I really love about this movie is how the hospital itself, it feels like its own little world, and it feels like the nurse, she pretty much runs it, and it's beautiful. I can't praise the on-screen rivalry between McMurphy and Nurse Ratched. It's expertly written, beautifully done, and to me has a very, very good payoff, which I'll get to momentarily. But yeah, Nicholson and Louise Fletcher, they're not the only good stuff in this movie. They're great, but the supporting cast in this movie, to me, is awesome as well. This movie has Danny DeVito. It has Christopher Lloyd. It has a very, very young Brad Dourif, who is the voice of Chucky. They're beautiful in their roles as well. With Danny DeVito playing this guy named Martini. I thought he was pretty funny. Christopher Lloyd has a role in this movie as a guy called Tabor. He's good as well. William Redfield plays this other character whose name escapes me. I can't remember what his name was for some reason, but his whole deal is that he's pretty much he's suffering from infidelity problems because he feels his wife is always cheating on him. So yeah, like everyone, like all the men in the ward, I think they all play their roles well, and they all have like the little ticks that make them stand out and make you see why they're in this place. And when they're in confrontation with Nurse Ratched, when they try to speak up, she brings them down, almost emasculates them in a way. And like I said, once McMurphy hits the scene, everything changes. And there are a lot of key scenes with this happening. Like, there's this whole thing where McMurphy wants to watch the World Series, but Nurse Ratched refused to put on the TV, even to the point where McMurphy gets the final vote by the old Chief Bromden, played by Will Sampson. Chief Bromden, by the way, is one of my favorite characters in this movie. I love Chief Bromden, and I love the budding relationship that forms between McMurphy and Chief Bromden. And I like how for most part of the movie, the Chief is making everyone believe that he's dumb, deaf, and blind, that he's dumb and deaf, like he can't hear and he can't speak. But when you get to like the last half of the movie, you realize it was all an act, and that just makes the Chief character that much more interesting, and it makes the relationship between the Chief and McMurphy that much more interesting too, because they kind of can relate to one another. And if McMurphy was not in that state hospital, then you would know that the Chief would be pretty much be trying to save these, would be sticking up for the rest of the men of the ward. But since in the Chief's mind, McMurphy is bigger than him in terms of just a mental prowess, the Chief pretty much tries to play stupid until it all breaks because of McMurphy's help. And the budding relationship and friendship that forms between the two, beautifully done, beautifully written, so organic. I love it. All right, now back to what I was saying before about the World Series. So yeah, the Nurse refuses to put on the World Series, and then McMurphy, he just starts miming the fact that he's watching the World Series, and this gets all the men in the ward to join him in the rebellion against Nurse Ratched. Beautifully done. Another great scene is the fishing scene, where he takes everyone on a boat and teaches them how to fish. Great scene, and what I love about it is that you really see the camaraderie form between all the men in the ward while on the fishing trip, and you really get a sense that these guys are forming a very tight bond, and they really do view McMurphy as pretty much their leader, as pretty much the guy that they're going to look on to. And it's beautifully done, and I love it a lot. Now, of course, this movie does have a very, very dark ending, but also has a very satisfying and uplifting ending. So throughout this movie, McMurphy is developing this bond with Billy Bibbit, whose condition is that he stutters way too much and he's very, very nervous. But all the while, he's a mild-mannered guy. So McMurphy, he throws a late-night party at the mental institution, and then when it gets to the early mornings, Nurse Ratched finds Billy Bibbit in bed with another woman, and she scolds Billy, threatens to call Billy's mother, and Billy ends up killing himself. This causes McMurphy to pretty much lunge at Ratched, choke her to death. And of course, this is what leads to the guards to beat down McMurphy. They lobotomize him, and now he's pretty much a vegetable. So the entire thing with McMurphy and the Chief is that they were planning to escape together. Now, since McMurphy is now lobotomized, he's pretty much a vegetable. He can't do anything. Now, of course, this breaks the Chief's heart, because he's pretty much seeing his friend and somebody who has pretty much helped him get out of his shell just become a shell of his former self in a way. It's almost as if the Chief has become McMurphy, and McMurphy has become the Chief in a way of being deaf and dumb. So pretty much in a mercy killing and not wanting to have his friend live out the rest of his life in a vegetative state, he kills McMurphy, he takes up his hydrotherapy, throws it out of a window, and he escapes. It's a very somber yet uplifting scene, and I love it. Like Nurse Ratched, she gets hers in the end because McMurphy ends up crushing her throat. So the authoritarian, presence that Nurse Ratched once had is now gone. She's in a neck brace, and her voice is not as powerful anymore, and the men aren't afraid of her anymore. Then the Chief, he pretty much rediscovers who he is, and he escapes with a little piece of McMurphy within him, which is what I love, and it's beautifully symbolic in that. And that's what One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is. It's a beautiful symbolic movie. Now, is there a lot more things to talk about with this film? Absolutely. But those are just my bare bones thoughts on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This movie is a perfect 10. I love it. If you have not seen it in a very long time, you gotta watch it because it is that damn good. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like this video and subscribe, and I will check you back next time for more.